Are we recording? We are.
Hello, this is me, talking words from my mouth hole.
I think I might have been... I'm going a bit deaf because it sounds quiet there. Can I turn us up like that?
Turn me down a little bit in my ears,
Which
because that's quite loud. Am I two or am I think I'm two?
Are you this one? Let's try
Turn me
this.
down a little bit. Not quite down that much.
Right, that is you. I was
That's
just,
me.
you know, I was just
Yeah, okay.
being extreme to find out. So how about there?
Yeah, that's good. I can hear me there without going deaf.
Yeah, you are definitely... You've got better hearing than I have.
Or just louder headphones.
That's true, actually. That's good. What's the impedance of those cans, man?
48 ohms over 3 pi squared.
We'll have 3 pi squared any day. You see my fucking waistline. No, sorry, before you tuck in, literally, I just want to say that I have been watching some videos lately and I'd like to know, is there a slender motorcycle journalist over the age of 40? Because I don't think there is.
No comment. Hello everyone and welcome to Front End Chatter, Britain's most irregular, in all meanings of the word, biking podcast. With him, Simon Hargreaves.
And him, Martin Fitzgibbons.
The Roman poet Sextus, stop sniggering at the back, Propertius, a master of the pre-BC one-liners, was the first to arrange the following words in the following order. Semper in absentes felicior aistus amantus. A somewhat spicy version of the idiom that was later toned down quite a lot to the more family-friendly absence makes the heart grow fonder. It may be one of the earliest recording expressions conveying the idea that the longing created by distance or separation leads to stronger feelings. Roughly 2,000 years later, Canadian songstress Joni Mitchell cobbled together the hideously convoluted triple negative "Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone?" Linguistically troublesome and tinged with a hint more permanence about it, but still it touched on the same inverse proportion between availability of a thing and desire for that thing.
Yeah.
And just a few short decades after that, Manchester professional contrarian and self-appointed national identity guardian Stephen Patrick Morrissey scribbled, "The more you ignore me, the closer I get." Slightly darker and a bit more one-sided. This was dismissed by the enemy as a formless, neutered ramble, which left Moz's gleaming reputation tarnished. Morrissey presumably heard this and thought it was a challenge, and the solution was not to write better songs, but to obliterate his own reputation himself. But the point remains, things are often more desirable when they are just beyond reach. And then you realise that this human trait to act like a 4-year-old who definitely doesn't want to eat his cucumber right up until the point he's told he's not allowed to eat his cucumber, at which point he suddenly realises he wants to eat nothing but cucumber. It can be harnessed. It can be manipulated. It can be monetised. With things like supersport bikes. We loved them. We stopped buying them.
We did.
They stopped building them. We moan that they stopped building them. And so we get a semi-half-assed resurrection of 20-year-old supersport bikes. Or things like two-strokes. We loved them. We stopped buying them. They stopped building them. We moan that they've gone all woke and stopped building them. And then you get Kawasaki's social media tease campaign that they listen to their customers and now they're going to be building a new two-stroke once again. Or things like KTMs. We loved them. We stopped buying them at least at the same rate as they were building them. They didn't stop building them. They found themselves with hundreds of thousands of unsold bikes that caused costs to skyrocket and ultimately contributed to the financial downfall of the company. But now they're back, just like the good old days from roughly 90 days ago. See, it's clever marketing. Or things like the Indian FTR 1200. Or Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RR, bikes that fused modern performance with retro aesthetic, sold pretty poorly, and in recent weeks have been confirmed to be discontinued from lineups for 2025.
Is it?
Oh, that's rubbish, comes the call. That bike I never bought and was never going to buy and never thought about buying and I've never wanted to buy, I now can't buy anymore. Outrageous! See also things like Silverstone Track Days or Irish Road Racing or the Nürburgring Nordschleife Tourist Fahrt and Stop Giggling at the Back days. Remember them? They used to be things and then they weren't things and then we all wanted them to be things again, not because we wanted to do that thing, but because we liked it when they were things. And we were all wallowing in the snuggly comfort of knowing that things are the same things they were yesterday when I understood the world. And it's a thing that isn't ever going to change. And when it changes, it's not yesterday. It's the... People are prepared to do anything, to do a thing, once that thing isn't a thing they can do anymore. Old Sextus really was onto something. Yeah. But why then, Simon? Why, oh, why isn't it the same for motorcycle podcasts? Honestly, we haven't done a podcast for, 7 weeks at this point? And there hasn't been any detectable surge in demand whatsoever. Where's the masses clutching torches, screaming at the gates of Chatter Manors? Where are the change.org petitions to get us back together? We cynically and deliberately manufactured almost 2 months of absence. Now where's our wealth of fond hearts? Turns out that absence can actually be quite a welcome relief, especially if it's an absence of the unintelligible ramblings of two uninformed opinion spouters.
This is true.
But I'll tell you something I'll never get tired of having around.
Go on.
A body who's been a constant in the insurance world for 95 years. They're never going to give you up. They're never going to let you down. They're never going to run around and desert you because they're Bennett's, Britain's best bike insurers. And they're a bedrock. They're steadfast by our side, both in the sense of continuing to support front-end chatter and in the wider sense of supporting British motorcyclists with their unmatched levels of customer service, incredible efforts to scour the best insurance deals from a panel of underwriters, their 14 years of de facto 5-star rating, their inclusion of many common motorcycle modifications with all policies, and their welcome gift for those who take a policy direct of a year's free Bike Social membership, unlocking more than 150 exclusive discounts, competitions, offers, experiences, and so much more. Bennett's proves that absence does not necessarily make the heart grow fonder. In fact, I've just renewed my fondness with them by renewing my own motorcycle insurance policy with Bennett's.
Oh, congratulations. Well done.
Don't need any absence. Thank you very much.
Good. Brilliant. Well done. Well, fantastic intro. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Speaking of absences, then, should we go back and tuck in to a couple of those absences that
the little morsels?
Your little morsels, little absences. How about KTM then? What's the story with KTM?
We're not going to do actual news, are we?
Yeah, get in. Yeah, let's start off. I've heard all kinds of rumbles. I've heard BMW were interested in buying KTM. That was one little sort of rumour doing the rounds. Didn't really investigate where it came from, but just thought I'd see it on Instagram.
No, nor did anyone else who reported it by the sounds of it.
Right.
Well, no, it's not untrue yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we try and do a quick catch up of where we are?
Yeah, go for it. Where are we?
Because everything seems to change on a day-by-day basis. But as we're recording this, yesterday, KTM's restructuring plan was approved by its creditors in a court in Austria.
Oh.
According to Austrian newspaper Kronen Zeitung, quote, apart from one major creditor and a few small creditors, everyone voted for the 30% quota offered by KTM.
Ah, okay.
So, Simon, I borrow £10 from you, I mess up my business, I offer you £3 back, and we'll call it even.
But you didn't borrow £10 from me. Don't forget. I just
definitely did.
You didn't. I just put £10 in your bank.
I see.
So I loaned you £10, but it wasn't actually £10. You couldn't have gone to me and you couldn't have gone to your bank and got it out. But what you could have done is passed it on through the bank to someone else so that they had £10. It didn't actually exist.
Well, if we scale it up to KTM's level, I now would need to deposit an amount of 548 million euros with my restructuring administrator by May the 23rd.
Oh, okay.
Now, if that's 30% of your total debts, and that would suggest that your debts were approaching 2 billion euros, which in turn would mean that something in the order of 1.3 billion euros is just about to be forgotten about.
Well, yeah, because it never existed in the first place.
I mean, that is crazy.
I know, it's nuts, isn't it? It's absolutely bonkers.
So they need 548 million to continue. Only it turns out they need more than that. That's just the money to keep the creditors happy. Yeah. And they also need a further 150 million euros to get motorcycle production going again.
Start making motorbikes. Yeah.
Production that has been paused since December 13th and which is currently hoped to be restarted on March 17th. So that's 548 plus 150, call it 700 million euros. Or as the press release from parent company Piera Mobility describes it, quote, in order to finance the cash quota and further production, the group requires fresh capital of around 800 million euros.
Oh, okay. Just a little bit extra.
So say I borrow £10 from you, pay you back £3. We both forget about the 7. Can I borrow another £5 now? Surely that's the tricky bit where you go back to the banks and go, hey, guys.
Well, that's the bit
Let's bygones be bygones.
Well, have they said where these investors are coming from to provide this extra then?
Don't worry, Si, because the first 50 million has already been transferred from Bajaj.
Bajaj,
who's
okay.
safely sitting in some administrator's account somewhere. So that's, as the old saying goes, 50 million down, $750 million still to go.
Yeah. Okay.
But so we do have a $750 million hole.
So we've still got a hole.
For
we've got
somebody
a plan
to step into.
Okay. So
who could that be?
It feels like they've cleared the first hurdle then. But
I'm waiting for the barbed wire fence to...
yeah, they've got some more to clear. Okay.
Yeah. Look,
all right. I tell you, there is one positive from all of this,
Please.
which is that when they do finally resume production at Mattighofen, you can be pretty sure that they'll be very capable of accurately matching their production to the numbers of bikes they're actually going to sell.
We're not going to make that mistake again.
Oh, I don't think they will. I think
don't?
That will be pretty carefully done. Yeah.
Can I tell you that I have concerns about that exact thing?
Do you?
Yeah.
They're going to wade straight back into overproduction again.
Well, so this is not me making stuff up. Their own press release says they are hoping to, I've got to find the quote, they're talking about resuming production at a rate of, quote, the planned full capacity utilisation of the 4 production lines in a single shift operation.
Okay,
that doesn't mean an awful lot, but having visited the factory last year, I know that a street bike takes KTM 6 minutes to build, and I know that an off-road bike takes 3 minutes to build.
Okay.
A shift lasts 8 hours. So with the 4 production lines, KTM builds somewhere between 320 and 640 bikes per shift.
Yeah.
Let's call it 500 bikes a shift. So if you're running a single shift day, 500 bikes a day. In a week, that's 2,500. In a year, that's 130,000. Now, that's a fraction of the 200,000 they have been building in Mattighofen, but we have to remember that they also build a lot of bikes overseas. And if you go into Piera's own numbers, it's roughly 170,000 bikes a year overseas, according to 2023's figures.
Okay.
So if they're building 130,000 in Austria and 170,000 elsewhere, we're up to 300,000 bikes, which is higher than the number of bikes they actually sold to actual customers in 2024. And let's not forget, their financial issues may be nearer the end than the beginning, but they still have a glut of unsold bikes sitting in warehouses that need to be shifted.
Now, that's a good point. Is that there's been no discussion about the plan for that then?
No, nothing publicly anyway.
Because there was sort of these, somebody said somewhere that a lot of them aren't homologated anymore because they're not Euro 5 Plus. So they were going to be sold under derogation, but now the derogation period is closed.
Well, apparently not. Apparently derogation is applying throughout 2025, which is why bikes like Suzuki's SV650 can still be sold.
Oh, okay, so it's still going on then.
Derogation continues through this year, but I think you're limited on numbers.
Right.
I think it can only make up a percentage of your sales, and by the looks of it, it would need to make up a very high percentage.
I was going to say,
KTM sales.
So, but we've not read anything then about what they plan to do with that glut of bikes.
The only clue that I've gleaned is in a recent press release from KTM about a worldwide 4-year warranty offered on all, quote, 2023, 2024, and 2025 new bikes.
Right. Okay.
Which I'm presuming isn't mean they're retrospectively applying it to 2023 bikes, but that they still have stock of unsold 2023 bikes.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation of the wording.
Yeah.
So I think they've still got a lot of bikes to clear. They still need to find an investor who's about to spunk up €750 million.
Yeah.
The rumours for that are that it's either going to be a guy called, checks notes, Stefan Zockling, who's the CEO of Remus Exhausts, and a man who, checks notes, has just been made a member of the executive board of Piera Industry AG since, checks notes, January the 1st, 2025.
Okay. Who's he?
Well, he's a man who makes Remus Exhaust and has made an awful lot of money from doing it.
Oh, I see. That's the same chap.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
But other rumours do include BMW, although who knows where those rumours have come from or how reliable they are, because this would all be confidential. or Bajaj or CF Moto, or who knows? Is it you, Si? Have you got €750 million to give KTM's way? I mean, it's not real money after all, according to you.
No, it's not real money. Yeah, I'll just send them some noughts. I can add some noughts to their numbers. I still think in terms of production, I think the fewer bikes they build, the cheaper it is. So the less money they'll need to do it. So I still think that will be quite a strong driver to make sure that whatever they say about how many bikes they're going to build, they're not going to make very many.
I think success is going to look very different for them than success has looked for them.
I'd just like to know, true. I'd like to know what people who've pre-ordered 2025 KTM, prestige flagship models from Mattighofen, how long do you think they're going to will have to wait?
Yeah, it will be interesting.
How long will they have to wait? Do they get a refund? Can they just get their money back and say, I'm going somewhere else?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wonder when a 990 RCR will actually
arrive. Yeah. Oh, well,
just want to finish that off, not on a sour note as well. Surely, when we started our discussions about KTM and their insolvency restructuring, we kind of expressed concern for the people who work there, who were going to be potentially made redundant, and several hundred have been made redundant. I guess you have to say this is good news for the people who work there, who still have jobs. That production of bikes in Austria sounds like a good thing, certainly for Mattighofen and Mundafing, the little villages in the area. I think KTM continuing as a viable business is a good thing for motorcycling. I think it adds a level of excitement and depth and different character and different styling, and makes motorcycling a more vivid and exciting place for existing, rather than the other option, which could have happened yesterday, was it just go down the shitter and that's the end of that. So surely a good thing that KTM is still with us.
Definitely, although the disaster doom scrollers out there will doubtless have taken great pleasure in watching them fold and finish and disappear. I'm not quite sure about the psychology of all that, but...
I took no pleasure. Like, it's been a sort of weird past 6 to 7 months in watching this thing happen.
It's not pleasure in the traditional sense, but there is a kind of vicarious thrill about the enormity of the shockwave rippling through motorcycling when a manufacturer like KTM drops the ball like that. You can't deny there is a certain amount of
mad stuff,
morbid curiosity in watching that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. There's no actual kind of pleasure in because it's not a good thing for motorcycling, whichever way you look at it.
No, nor its suppliers, nor its business partners, nor anything.
Speaking of things that are not a good look for motorcycling,
okay,
bikes have been banned from the Nürburgring.
Ish.
Well, pretty much. So the people who run the Nürburgring have announced that, effective immediately, motorcycles are banned from open days at the circuit. Which sort of it ends the ring as a hallowed place of pilgrimage for riders all over Europe to go and max their bikes out on the 13-mile circuit, rubbing shoulders with cars and vans and even coaches, I think, full of tourists. And all that's left now are a couple of motorcycle training days, I believe, and a kind of a parade lap, I understand. I've been reading about stuff by Dale Lomas, the ex-Performance Bikes staffer, and accident waiting to happen. Now, expert driving instructor at the Nürburgring. He runs bridgetogantry.com, which is sort of the essential English-speaking website to go to for all your Nürburgring information. And anyway, he says this, so thanks, Dale, for your work, but he says, the decision came after no consultation with the biking community. The official reason from the Nürburgring Facebook page states that this change is driven by safety concerns. Quotes, the differing dynamics of 2- and 4-wheeled vehicles have long presented risks, and after extensive consultation, the track has determined that separating them is the only solution. Separating them by actually banning bikes altogether. So
it's very much separating in the way that ant powder separates ants from their lives.
Yes.
It's not like they go, we're going to separate it so Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays can be cars and then Tuesdays and Thursdays can be bikes. That would be separating.
That would be separating. Yes, exactly.
Saying cars can use the track and bikes can't,
yes,
that's not separating.
That's not separating. Dale goes on to say that, quote, my guesswork is it's no secret that cars and motorcycles crash and that mixed traffic on a racetrack presents challenges. Dale says, over my last 25 years riding this weird track, I've seen more than a few accidents where cars and bikes have come together with sometimes fatal results. But most crashes are actually boring, dull, and not headline grabbing. My theory, says Dale, is that out of every dozen or so car crashes, only one will be severe enough to actually close the circuit and cost the operators money. Compare that to motorcycles, where pretty much every other crash will need an ambulance and a safe working environment for the paramedics, and there you go, closing the track. There's your answer. It's just his theory. That's Dale. So basically, that sort of leaves the TT mountain section as the last remaining kind of ring out place to go in Europe, I guess. When was the last time you went to the ring?
Never.
You've never been?
Never been. Never wanted to go. Glad I dodged that bullet.
Really?
100%.
Was that because of its reputation? Is
Yes.
that all the stuff you'd read? And
I mean,
you believe the hype?
At the risk of being a pearl-clutching drama queen woke scumbag, the description
no
of...
risk of that.
The description of... let me try and find it. I don't fucking have it. But differing... there it is. Differing driving dynamics of 2- and 4-wheelers posing a risk of misunderstanding, especially for motorcyclists, is almost word for word why I've never wanted to go there. It feels like, as you described, Dale, ironically, that format is an accident waiting to happen. If you put anybody in any car with any coach and any bike, I don't want to put my risk, my safety, my jeopardy in the hands of somebody else in a car who's trying to go fast as well. So the whole idea of it is absolutely terrifying. And I've been far too scared to go. That's the absolute God's honest truth. But you are far more of a butch man than I am, and you have been to the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
How many times and on what bikes, and what was your fastest bridge to gantry time?
Oh, shut up.
And were you what was he called? He wasn't the Stig. The Baron.
The Baron.
Were you the Baron?
R.I.P. No, it was not, because he's no longer here and I am so far. The last one, I'm not like you. Early days, I shared those kind of fears because I also had heard about its reputation. I knew other people who went there regularly, and this was in the 90s. I know a few people who'd suffered big accidents there. And so it did sound like a really scary place. And so I was in a hurry to get out there. So it was quite a long time before I actually managed it. It was in 2007.
Oh, wow.
But I did manage to take some good bikes with me. So we had a Ducati 1098, a Fireblade G6R1000, R1 ZX10R in it. And we went out there.
Oh, good learner bikes.
Not so bad. And we rode them out there. And a bit nervous because, you're getting this reputation. It's 13 miles. I'm like, that's a lot to learn in terms of corners. You're going to like, what's going to happen? But we got lucky because the day that we went, it was the end of March and it was beautiful weather. It was sunny, it was warm, and it was dry. But nobody had woken up yet to that fact. And I think it was a surprise because out in the Eifel region, I think the weather is fairly, it's got, that famous phrase for the Ardennes and the Eifel, they've got their own weather systems. And so the track was almost empty, especially at 13 miles long. There could have been quite a lot of stuff on it, but it was so spread out. So we had the place to ourselves pretty much. And we just did lap after lap after lap, changing on the bikes, swapping from bike to bike. And I found that it wasn't hard to learn. It was a very obvious track because it's very wide, it's very generous, and it's very predictable. There's nothing kind of deliberately tricksy about it. There's no kind of tightening radiuses that I remember that were particularly, you'd arrive and you didn't see it coming. You could read it like a road. And I think the thing is, because it was so wide and so generous, and each section was quite memorable, you would go, oh, that's the Flugenhöfen. That's that bit there. I've read about that. And then, there's that bit. So after about 3 laps, it kind of knew what was coming next. And I think but that's at sort of like, it's quite fast because you're on open track on a Lita sports bike, but in terms of actual lap times, it was probably pedestrian pace. And it's like that thing, you can ride around a track quite happily, working out where you're going at a reasonable pace. But when you actually start riding fast enough where you have to make the apex and you have to make the exit and you're committing, that's the bit, I think, where the Nürburgring gets really fucking scary, really fucking quick. And we were nowhere near that pace. It wasn't a commitment thing. You weren't running out of road. You were just kind of riding it like a road almost, reading it and going, oh, okay, you're doing 120 or something, but it's okay because if you're doing 160, you'd be fucked. But, there was a big head, you had big margins. So it was really cool. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought, this is fucking amazing. Oh, wow. I'm going to come back and do this again. So it was about a decade later when I got a chance.
Wow, when was that?
That was 2016.
How do I not remember that? That was during FEC then?
Yeah, it was, yeah. I went over on a K1300S for MCN The editor at the time, deputy editor Tim Thompson, had said, "Oh, it's the end. It was the end of the production run of the K1300S. We want to have a last hurrah. Can you ride it as fast as you possibly can down the autobahn and get a picture on the tank of it doing 160, and then take it to the Nürburgring?" I was like, "Yeah, I can do that. That sounds cool." And it was a completely different experience. Riding over there was great. Getting to the Nürburgring was okay, but it was one of their track evenings, and it was rammed, absolutely rammed. And then as the sun went down, what I discovered was that as you rode around the track, the low sun would reflect off the surface, and it made every single corner look like it was covered in oil. Because it had that kind of shiny look to it. And so you would be riding into the sun, coming over crests, just going, what the, what's that? You know, it was kind of, and I got dicked by a bloke in a Renault Clio. I'm on a K1300S. I thought, right. Yeah, it was busy, and it wasn't the same experience. And I sort of went, yeah, I'm not kind of enjoying this quite as much. I'd much rather go batshit on the road outside on the circuit. And then I went a year later, just dropped in, passing on a group test on a VFR 800 and a Ducati Supersport and a GSXS 1000F. Did another couple of laps, same kind of sensation really. It was a bit like, too much traffic, too busy, too much hassle. Good vibe, it felt great, but yeah.
Can I take you back to the K? Was there?
Yes.
Because when I think about Nürburgring and watching a Nürburgring onboard, the first thing that springs to mind is that when the K1200S first came out in 2004, one of the things BMW did to promote it and to show how they had built sports bikes, a proper sports bike, even though it was shaft drive and duo lever, is they sent one of their test riders or hired in a test rider for the day and sent him off around Nürburgring on K200S and shot either an onboard or a bolt-on or something. And I remember that being one of the kind of first viral videos that was kind of doing the rounds in the office. You would have, it wasn't on like a YouTube, but you would have downloaded it and it would have been in like 320 by 240 QuickTime or whatever. And just watching it, and it would have been sub 8 minutes and just thinking, holy hellfire, that is crazy.
Yeah. There was an earlier version of that. There was the ring lord used to be a guy called Helmut Dahner.
Oh, yeah.
And he did an onboard video. I think it was on an RC30. And his brilliant tone of voice as he did the narration to this lap. And then you're flying down the Fluxhall, and it was completely deadpan, but
like it was the least exciting thing in the world.
Absolutely. If he'd had a heart rate monitor during that lap, I swear it wouldn't have gone above 60 BPM. It was it's a great little video, but again, watching it in sort of that tiny little aspect ratio on your screen. Crazy place. And so it is all over. It makes sense to me because it must be simple maths. You must lose more from bikes than they make, by the fact that there's so many bikes cause so many accidents, so many stoppages, that there aren't enough bikes paying to go in there to compensate for that. You're losing money by letting bikes on there. Otherwise, or it must be close to that. Because, the safety thing, it's economics. It's always economics.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that was my thought as well, is that safety or the concept that bikes and cars together on track isn't safe or isn't safe enough can be easily fixed by, and I'm not, joking about the Mondays, Wednesdays and Thursdays thing, but if it's about separating them, then you put on bike tourist farting days and you put on car tourist farting days.
Yeah.
So then you go, all right, it's not that. So what is it? Well, it must be financial. And whether that financial is that bikes have either more accidents or more severe accidents or more expensive accidents, or whether it's nothing to do with that and it could be something else. Could it not be an insurance thing, a liability thing? Could it not be that some actuary somewhere is looking at a spreadsheet and gone, if you want us to cover that, it's going to cost you this?
Bit like the Northwest.
Exactly like the Irish road racing.
Yeah.
I bet there is a noughts and ones spreadsheet somewhere that is responsible for this decision.
Yeah, I think if it was the insurance thing, they might have alluded to that maybe in a press release because you must have known that this was going to cause a bit of a stir, and so if you could find any excuse to get out of it, I think safety is your first one, and then maybe it's not my fault, it's someone else's. The insurance won't let us. It's them guys will be your kind of second excuse.
Yeah.
But I don't think you'd ever put your hands up and say, well, it costs too much. But yeah, it does seem a shame that it's blanket pretty much.
Yes, to not put a single day on. Other than, because that's not quite true, because there are 4 days.
Is it 4, is it?
But they're all kind of under instruction, aren't they? So there's no open Nürburgring opportunity for motorcycles this year.
No. This year and possibly never.
Possibly forevermore, but
possibly.
Never say never. I just said it twice. Yeah. What do you think the odds are of riding a KTM 990 RC around the Nürburgring?
Not very good. Not very good. Anyway, we did say that the Ring is the last place you can go nuts in Europe. It's not quite true, because you could come to Scotland and ride with me and you in May.
Hey, the Nürburgring.
The FEC Highland Fling 2. It's closing. The last few rooms remaining. So this is the final call for the FEC Highland Fling 2. This is the chance to come to Scotland with us, ride the best roads over 3 days. We've got 3 hand-picked routes, all based around the same hotel in the Central Highlands. The dates are, it's the first week in May, end of the first week in May, so it's arrive on Tuesday, May the 6th. 4 nights, 3 days of riding, depart on Saturday the 10th of May. It's Scotland's greatest hits. We're going up to the north coast. We're taking in the best bits of the NC 500. We're going to the west coast with the Black Bar and going into the Cairngorms. Lots of riding, lots of fun, lots of drinking in the evening, and a podcast at the end of it.
If they haven't suffered
enough. A few rooms left. I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3. I don't think it's many. So last call. If you've been prevaricating or dithering or putting it off or, saving up a few pennies, now's the time to smash open the piggy bank and go for it. And we have kept it as decent as we can, I think. We're not having... There's no dinner.
There is dinner, but it's not included. That. There is food, let's be clear. There is food. This is not a Simon Hargreaves diet trip. There is food, but we're operating the booking on a bed and breakfast basis.
That's right, yes.
So we're not charging you for food up front. That's for you to deal with as you choose.
I will be buying a little salad in a pot at Tesco's in Ullapool.
I will be licking some dust.
And then drinking. As long as the bar's open, that's all I care.
It will be. Good. If you want to find the booking page, your short link to go to the MCI Tours booking page for MCI Tours have done all the grown-up logistics. You go to bit.ly /FECFling2, FEC FLING 2. Mm-hmm. That will take you there. And we're going to close booking on Friday, March the 7th.
Are we?
Friday, March the 7th, 2025. If you're listening to this after then, too bad you can't come. If you're listening to this before then, you get into your Bitleys and come with us to Scotland.
It's going to be epic. I can't wait.
It's very, very much not that long ago now, is it? Not that far away.
Have we done this already? I can't remember. Do you know what you're riding?
No idea yet.
No
idea yet.
Neither have. I've got an idea.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah.
It's like what are you wearing to the prom?
It is a bit, isn't it? Yeah, it's like that. No, let's wait till we get closer.
All right. So, FEC Fling 2. Yeah, well, look, clocks change next month. Clocks change in 4 weeks or something. And then that'll be March. Then that'll be end of March. Then we'll be into April. And then we'll be on the Fling.
Yeah. I know.
Just like that.
It's incredible. You know what? It was sunny this morning. Was it this morning? It was yesterday. I looked out of the window. It was in my office window. And the sun was sort of just sinking. And it does that thing at this time of year. It always does it where... it stays light longer. And so I'm sitting there working, typing away, and I'll look up at my clock and it'll say like 6 o'clock. And I'm like, but it can't be. It's still light outside, How have I been going so long? It is tricksy. But it felt like spring. I've had a lot of riding lately where it hasn't felt like spring.
I've had some riding lately, and it's gone from -5 to 15 in the space of a few days.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's been a crazy warm patch, wasn't there? But it wasn't very long.
No.
What have you been up to then? What have you been doing?
Oh, not a lot, Si. I think since last we fecked, I rode Kawasaki Z7 Hybrid with its updated software and found an improvement to the gear shift with no more gears popping out. I investigated links between motorcycles and mental and physical health for Ride magazine. I went on a road test to Wales with a Honda NT1100 and a BMW S1000 XR for Bike magazine. I was on a 3-bike Retro 400s group test for MCN's YouTube channel and a Future Bike Mag group test. I spoke to an expert on battery chemistry for a future feature for Bennett's Bike Social. I got back on the same NT1100 for Bennett's road test video, which will be out soon at some point, hopefully. I've been deep diving into Yamaha's new prototype Series Parallel Hybrid for a tech piece for MCN, and last Sunday I of course attended Front End Chatter's 11th birthday party.
I missed that. What was that?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to invite you. Sorry.
That's all right. I don't mind. I was busy anyway.
What have you been up to?
Not quite as much as you have, by the sound of it. What have I done? I've been on a Ducati launch. I rode the Multistrada V2, V2S, for MCN. Which is, you probably can't read about in the paper now because the paper is gone, because that was a while ago.
You could have an app. You could have a paper app.
You can have a paper app, or you can go on the website and read the long-form review of the bike. It's about 3,500 words. I could stretch my legs a bit there. A lot to get into because it was a brand new engine. It's the first use of that 890cc, which hasn't got a name now. It's called a V2 now, just confusing me because the old bike was the V2. Now it's the engine, not the bike, but hey-ho. Well, it's the bike as well, actually, come to think of it. So yeah, first use of that engine. I think since then they've launched the Panigale as well, which obviously I didn't go and ride that because I couldn't fit in my leathers. And it's a completely new chassis on the Multistrada. And interestingly, the thing was that it was a smaller engine than its predecessor, which very rarely happens, if ever, I don't think. I think actually Suzuki did it, didn't they? They had a Bandit that went down from... Oh no, it made less power, that was right, than its predecessor. So there was a lot to get into. Yeah, so I could read about it on MCN. But the potted version is, it's really good. And it's the reduction in engine capacity would make you think the bike turns into a Revia thing, which it does, but it has got the bottom end as well. Or it certainly feels like it has. They've managed to either mask it with gearing or bolster it through the use of variable valve timing and various other bits and bobs.
Or being really cheeky on ride-by-wire. Because that's the other way you can master these things now. Is you could map it so that you open your throttle at 5% and it opens the butterflies to,
Yeah, it hasn't got that kind of... Yeah, I know what you mean. Yamaha do that a lot with the CP3. It hasn't got that same kind of leapiness to it.
Oh, okay.
But it is still very much a sporty engine. It's so civilised, though. It is really... Not mild-mannered is the wrong way to describe it, but it is... I think I said something like this in the review, actually. It's coming back to me now. I think I'd said that in the past, you always got the sense with Ducati, even their most integrated models, that the engine and the chassis weren't born from the same womb somehow. Okay. That they were, not in a bad way, because they felt great, but there was always a kind of an active feeling about Ducati, a kind of a gangly kind of hey-ness about it. They never felt like really totally integrated in the way kind of Japanese bikes do. Not in a bad way. It's a kind of a characteristic. Whereas the V4 and the V2 now do feel like that. It is now a blank slate for you to write your motorcycling will upon it.
Blank slate in that it feels anonymous, generic? Does it still feel like a Ducati?
It does when it ends up at the top end and it really flies. You're kind of going, okay, it doesn't feel like a V-twin Ducati. It kind of feels like the V4 in a way almost. It's a bit weird in that sense that, because the V4 has it as well. I mean, it is a phenomenal machine. And it's kind of led me to think, can bikes be too good? Because you ride it and you kind of like we rode 3 for MCN, the 3 adventure bikes in the Peak District, and the Ducati was the winner because you and the other rider Paul liked it the best, and I liked it the second best, so that made it kind of the winner for what it's worth. Using those kind of that kind of language to describe something, it's not very nuanced, is it?
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, yeah. But for me, there was something charismatic about the Triumph that made it more memorable to use and to ride and to exist with and experience with. And the V4, and I've ridden them a lot. I've ridden them to Scotland several times. You have ridden them a lot, yeah. And they're fucking incredible. But it's almost like they're too incredible because they don't mock you, but they flatter you so much. It kind of leaves you a bit sort of disorientated almost. It's like... their limits are so extreme in every direction. It's like standing in the middle of the fens and just going, the fucking view's incredible. The skies are huge. The horizon is vast. The potential is limitless. But I'm kind of just lost in it all somehow. I just feel less significant to this relationship.
Have you ever felt that same way in any other aspect? Like, have you ever had a meal that is so good that it's kind of lost interest? Have you ever stayed in a hotel room that is so palatial that you've not enjoyed it? Have you ever, I don't know, seen a view or read a book or watched a film that is just so astonishingly complete that you've actually felt a bit untouched by it? Because that's kind of what you're describing, I think. It's like, because there are no flaws, it's so polished that you kind of don't have anything to kind of grab your fingertips into.
Yeah. That is kind of how I'm saying it. That is how I'm feeling. And I can't think of any other...
Because normally there's a pretty linear scale that goes kind of rubbish to really, really good.
Yeah.
And then the more a bike goes up towards the really, really good end, the more you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And there are some exceptions. We can all enjoy shit bikes.
Yeah, I'm not saying you don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a really weird, subtle thing, and maybe it's too nuanced, and maybe I'm just making it up. I don't know. But
isn't there a thing, you'll know from your chemical wheel painting days, isn't there a thing you have to do with kind of really polished surfaces where you have to kind of etch them a little bit to kind of create a kind of slightly rough surface that then the paint adheres to better? Is that how it works?
Well, it's not even DIY, mate. Painting your walls, you've got to make them. Yeah, you've got to provide a key for the. It's called a key. The painter's got a key into the surface.
But in this example, then the polished surface is the completeness of the bike, and your affection is the paint, and it kind of isn't quite. It's kind of a bit too non-stick.
Yeah. I'm kind of getting, you're right. That's exactly what it is. I'm sort of getting down. It's that granular level that I think. Carl, forgive me, I can't remember his name. The Yamaha engineer who was in charge of developing the original M1.
Oh,
when it used
Rossi's buddy.
It was pre-Rossi.
Oh, okay.
It was when Biaggi was riding it, so it wasn't for a sour, not the cross-plane crank M1. It was the very first one. So it was on carbs.
Yes,
the very first one, and I remember reading an interview with him. He was talking about the fuzzy human part of analog, the analog thing that digital can't replicate. It's like a fuzzy algorithmic cloudy thing that's human. And it turns out it was like rubbish because you can make digital with enough resolution to do that.
It's why the M1 did so well when it had carbs, isn't it?
Exactly. But I mean, there is an analogy there with the motorcycling that it's so perfect. It is quite hard to kind of get your teeth into it now. Wow. And I think that might only be a consideration available to someone who's ridden absolutely every motorbike ever made,
Sure.
So it could be specific just to, lucky buggers like us.
But that's a hell of a compliment to the V2 to even suggest that it's kind of up in that stratosphere
it is.
of stuff.
Yeah, it is actually, yeah. I mean, there's lots of other stuff that was spinning out of it. So, for example, riding it, it's got semi-active suspension, and one of these thoughts popped into my head was that in the old days, we used to have this kind of cliche for describing budget suspension. So if you had your flagship stuff, which had lots of adjusters and twiddlers on it, was massive shim stacks inside, was built and assembled very carefully, and everything was very measured. And when you rode the bike, you could feel it was flagship suspension, expensive suspension, because it had a sort of a supple quality. It felt oily and controlled and damped, and it took all the edges off the top of bumps, those kind of, it wasn't like a square wave. It had polished it into a sine wave almost, but not so long that the sine wave was stretched out and you were, feeling seasick. It was kind of just right. And then you got budget suspension, which was fitted to your kind of less expensive middleweights or whatever. And that was kind of normally, it had less control at each end of the spectrum. So it had kind of a less low speed damping. If you were kind of like hit ripples and undulations, the thing would start to pogo around a bit if you were booting it along. And then if you sort of were plunging into corners and really testing the high speed damping over kind of like feeling for that kind of minutiae of grip, it would get harsh and a bit gritty, and it wouldn't have a lot of control into sort of high speed compression damping or high speed damping. And so that was always the way that you would describe budget suspension. And it occurred to me that we're now in the situation that semi-active suspension started to filter down, if I can say filtering down includes a £16,000 middleweight adventure bike, but it's kind of coming down the chain now. And I wondered what budget semi-active suspension feels like, because it's clearly not flagship stuff, anymore. There are bikes that have got it that aren't the top draw. And so, and cost is always a factor, as we've just talked about. So you kind of think they're always looking for ways to make money. So I just thought to myself, while I was riding this bike, I mean, the suspension feels great, don't get me wrong, but I just thought, how can I describe it? At some point, cost will become an issue, and it'll be like, we've got this semi-active thing now, so how can we make it cheaper? Because that's the way the componentry works. What can we trim bits off, And it occurred to me on the V2S because I was boogieing along on it, and it is extremely competent, but it did there was something going on that made me feel just a fractionally sort of detached from the experience. And again, it's going back to that kind of smoothness thing. It's like, is this thing so good that I can't really get a handle on what it's doing? Or is there some sort of almost like a prophylactic going on between me and the road surface.
Okay.
You know, it's doing all the right things. It's damping. It's now got some anti-squat and anti-dive element to the semi-active, so that the electronics figure out what to do rather than relying on compromises with shim stacks and damping orifices and all the rest of it. But it feels great. But you're kind of going, I wonder if I took it on a track. Anyway, I talked to the Ducati engineer, the suspension engineer, afterwards, and he said, yeah, there's two strategies we have for semi-active. One is for sports and one is for touring.
Okay.
And this one's got touring strategy in it.
Strategy in an electronic sense or strategy in a physical sense?
I think both.
Okay.
They're different methods of measuring what the bike is doing and then controlling it. So the algorithms are different, but the actual physical componentry is different as well. And so I just wondered if, kind of that was a factor. But overall, the V2S, what a job, what an engine, It did feel a bit like a parallel twin low down.
Did it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
You couldn't actually tell what you're riding. I know every time I get on a KTM, if I get on an 890, I still think I'm riding a V-twin.
Okay.
Because I'm so closely associating it's an orange bike, it's a V-twin, of course it is.
Right.
So I still have to kind of recalibrate my brain. Not because, and with this, I was sort of riding along thinking, yeah, everything's a parallel twin these days. It's a parallel twin. No, it's a V-twin still.
Okay. Right.
There's nothing about, when it's really flying, then you can hear the engine note and it sounds like a V-twin.
Okay.
But and it kind of has that feel. But yeah, the rest of the time you think, yeah, it could be a parallel twin,
But to be clear, it is a 90-degree V-twin with normal 90-degree V-twin firing intervals.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't got Desmo. It's like the V4. They've slung out Desmo. They've slung out... What else did they chuck out?
There's no belts.
No belts. It's cam chain now. Yeah. So
there we go. You don't know what you got till it's gone. For a Desmo. For a belt drive.
Oh, dear, yeah. I don't know what load of rubbish. And finally, the other thing I've been riding recently is a Royal Enfield Shotgun for an upcoming geek test.
Oh.
Taken a while.
You're going to have to remind me what a shotgun is.
I had to remind myself what a shotgun is several times because it took me so long to do it. Thank you for your patience, Bennett. But anyway, it's coming soon, a geek test. So the shotgun, good question. I actually looked up on their marketing, Royal Enfield's marketing PR to find out what it was. And it was some wibbling about classic melding of DNA and all the rest of it.
Unlike all the other Royal Enfields, which don't classically meld DNA. Okay.
So it's where do we start? It's got elements of bobber,
right,
which is a flying seat, effectively, a strip back rear end. It's kind of got a little element of power cruiser because it's got upside down forks.
Oh,
but it is kind of done in a classic style. It is long, it is low, it's longer than the Interceptor and the Continental. It's not quite as long as what's the other one? Not the Meteor, the Super Cruiser, the cruiser one. And so it's kind of somewhere in between. And it is Royal Enfield's 650 twin, air cooled. It's the chassis shared with the Super Meteor. So it's a new chassis. It's not the Interceptor chassis. So it's not quite a double cradle. It's a single spine frame and it's got some big clamps. And it makes 44 of your BHPs, I think, around there somewhere. So it's not the most powerful thing in the world. It's the same engine as the Interceptor, I understand.
Okay.
Spudded around on that for a while.
So a geek test is Bike Social's YouTube franchise, which is a man getting unbelievably under the skin of everything, isn't it?
That's the plan. Yes. Sorry, I didn't make that clear, did I? Yeah, a bit of assumed knowledge there.
This is not a quick whiz around the block. This is data logging and dyno testing and meticulous measuring.
Weighing and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. It's interesting, actually, because the bike itself, I think I talk about this in the geek test. I say that it's kind of what I call a subjective style of bike, in that the empirical sort of measurements that you would make for something where it matters, like a sports bike, or something where it kind of that's the design aim of the bike, is one thing. But with this bike, you can measure the horsepower, and it's sort of interesting, but it doesn't define the bike. And you can measure the steering and you can measure the seat height, but it doesn't define the bike. What defines the bike is how it makes. Do you think it looks good and does it feel good when you ride it? And that's subjective, and that's just opinion. And my opinions might not be the same as yours. They usually aren't.
Yes, they are.
Oh, yes, they are. So it was an interesting thing because riding around on this 270-degree parallel twin, air cooled, albeit. I sort of was thinking to myself, do you know what? I've ridden sort of classic styled engines before, like things like Guzzi's V85 or the V7s or the V9s or the old original Bonnies from Triumph, which were the first Hinkley ones in 2000, 2001. Was it a 790, which I think was a 360?
Let's go with that.
Believe. And Sport Classic Ducatis, stuff like that. And they're all kind of more engaging motors. We're going back to that kind of engagement thing again. They kind of, they're more memorable than the shotgun motor. It's not, the bike is nice. It's predominantly made of metal, which is really refreshing. I can't remember the last time I rode a bike with so little plastic on it.
Oh, wow.
Which doesn't help when you plonk it on the scales, even though actually it weighed quite a lot less than Royal Enfield say it does, which I think is because they left off like a pillion pad on a big bracket. It comes at the back. I think they must have measured theirs with that on, but mine didn't have it. Yeah, it's predominantly made of metal, which is sort of really bizarre. And that helps with the way it looks and the way it feels. You kind of think you're riding this sort of industrial, sort of pre-war thing. It kind of really puts you in the right frame of mind. But the engine itself is not one of those things where you go, that's the experience. That's the bit that I remember. Those are the thumps that kind of mean something to me. It is still a slight means of conveyance. And I sort of thought, the engines, these 270-degree crank parallel twins, they're a bit vanilla. They're a bit utility. And anyway, it gave me the idea. I was thinking, what would be really cool is if we played a game of reverse word association with engine layouts.
Okay.
So what I want to do is, I've written down here some adjectives and some phrases.
Okay.
And I want to see if you can identify the engine configuration for each of them.
Is this me or is this the listener?
We can play along at home.
All right, okay.
Play along at home.
Am I being scored on this? Is this like, are you Victoria and this is only Connect?
No.
Okay.
This is just a game. This is just messing around. Number one.
All right.
Start off easy. Thumpy.
Well, let's go with a single.
Hey, that's a good start.
Excellent. Which isn't the case with one of the most recent singles I rode, which isn't thumpy at all. But I sort of know I know what your mind is like and I know where you're going.
Don't let the facts get in the way.
This. Yeah,
well, you've got yeah.
So I just rode Honda's GB350S, right? It's single cylinder bike. It's quite a small capacity. It's air cooled, long stroke, but it's got 2 balance shafts in it, and it is so refined that there is no thump. But
interesting.
Yeah, like nothing. It doesn't. So
why would you design it not to thump at all?
Because you want it to be very Honda. That's a choice at an engineering level, isn't it? When you're sitting down, you want it to be smooth and no vibration and polite and well-mannered and unintimidating and yeah. But sorry, please, I'm ruining your game.
No,
please
you're not
continue.
at all. No, it's interesting because that's the idea is to make us talk about it. Okay, here, number 2. This is a bit trickier. I've got 3 words for this one. Buttery, churning, creamy.
Ooh. Buttery, churning, creamy. Okay, so it's got to be something that's very well balanced. So I'm going to go with an inline 6.
I haven't gone that far.
Oh, have you not? Okay.
No, I haven't got an inline 6. Inline 6, I would say turbine for an inline 6.
Oh, okay.
I think I would have done.
I've gone too far. Right, okay. Well, you don't like twins, you don't like singles, so you're going to think that buttery, churny, smooth is either going to be a 3 or a 4, and it's got to be in line. I don't think 4s are very smooth, so I'm going to go triple.
Yeah.
Okay,
good.
All right.
Okay, second one.
But that isn't true for an MV Agusta.
No.
800 triple, which is very far from buttery and very far from churny.
Yes, that's raspy. That's raspy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. They've only got 10 of these. Screaming.
I've only got 10.
Screaming.
Inline 4.
Yay. Tricky one now. Droning.
Parallel twin with a 180 crank.
Good one. That was one option, but it's not.
Okay. What else is droning? Well, it's not a 3. It's not a 4. V4.
Yes.
Okay.
Well done. Droning and screaming.
A V5? I mean, I don't know. Droning and screaming. What drones and screams?
Crossline in 4.
Oh, an R1. Okay, yeah. CP4, yeah.
Okay, we'll rock through them. Thrumpety thrumming.
Thrumpety thrumming.
You're doing well so far.
Thrumpety thrumming. I've got absolutely no idea. What is a thrumpety thrumming?
Yeah, come on. What asthmatic. I had asthmatic as well. Asthmatically thumpety and drumming.
V single. I don't know.
Flat twin.
Flat twin. Of course it was. Apologies.
Okay. Here's an easy one. Potato.
Well, that's a 45 degree V twin.
Yes. How about this one then? Zzz.
That's an electric motor.
Yeah. I know the last two were rocking. I couldn't really think of one for rocking. Rocking? I couldn't think of a more sort of appropriate.
Rocking. Well, the most rockingest engine format is a 90-degree V-twin.
Yeah.
It's pretty rocky. It's pretty rock and roll.
Yeah, but it has to be arranged in a certain layout.
Oh, in a Guzzi style, in a longitudinal? Can't remember.
Yeah, or transverse. Yeah, good point. Yeah, come on. And the last one was, I couldn't think of a way of describing a Ducati V-twin. I couldn't.
Sublime. It's the best engine. 90-degree V-twin, water cooling, 4-valve heads.
Yeah.
Just no bad bike has ever been built with that engine configuration.
No, of course not. No, never. Right, there we go. That's good.
What about a V3 then?
Yeah, or more importantly, what would you use for a 270-degree parallel twin? What's your word association adjective for that?
Well,
that is
so my brain's got to try and quickly rustle up what some of the most recent examples are.
Yeah.
And I'll agree, there are a lot of very safe, there are a lot of very polite, there are a lot of very well-mannered 270-degree parallel twins. I'm thinking things like Hondas, having just ridden the NT 1100 for quite a few hundred miles. Mm-hmm. That is a very... So it's the same engine from the Africa Twin, 1084cc.
Yeah.
Parallel twin with a 270 crank. And that is very kind of safe and helpful, and it serves you up the power, and it doesn't make you go chasing for it. It's low revving, but it's not grunty. And I guess that's kind of some of the criteria or some of the characteristics you're describing on that Enfield engine. Mm. But an MT-07 engine is not that. That's kind of quite feisty.
Yeah, the
and lively and spicy.
I did caveat the CP2
Tenere engine.
The Super CP2 is an outlier in the 270-degree parallel twin boredom universe.
Boredom universe.
It is out there as something that has got some vim, and I put that down to the fact the Yamaha engineers can't build a boring engine apart from the Bulldog. Fair enough. But yeah, it's funny actually. We could talk a little bit about the NT because I've ridden it and I rode it not for a test of the bike. I rode it for Ride Magazine, doing a feature about riding some roads.
Okay.
And I thought it was, I must admit, I wanted to kick it in the hedge for a while.
I had some teething issues with it. It took a while. You kind of get on it expecting it to just do everything right from the first second you're on it, and it didn't. And I had to change a thing and then change a thing and then change a thing and then kind of learn how a thing works. Once I'd done all of that, I was very impressed. I thought it was very good, but it just kind of threw up a few too many little, this is going to be really boring, but user interface issues I found just for my first hour on the bike. When you're going like, how does that do that? Why can't I know how that does that? And the screen and the switch gear and a few things.
I would say that I kind of went to it thinking, right, I've really got to get into this DCT thing. I've really got to believe. And it was like mud wrestling a mobility scooter.
Right,
it was absolutely horrific.
I wouldn't say quite that bad, no.
Oh, mate. The worst thing about it was they've actually made the aerodynamics worse.
I could concede that, yeah.
That ridiculous screen. What is going on? It's like... Yeah, not a good thing. I did actually overlay the old bike and the new bike, and the new screen is further away from the rider. And I think that's part of the problem, is that vortex of air that's pushed up. But it's the way that it's so small, comes up, and then there's this big gap underneath. So they've had to put this Perspex, it's like a ruff, it's like a frilly collar they've shoved in underneath to go, oh, sorry, there's a bit of a gap there. And it just ducks the wind straight into you. It's horrible.
Did you find a height setting you were happy with eventually?
Yeah, but it was a compromise, not in a good way, because it was like awful either the other way. I mean, it went so low, it actually turned into a naked bike, which is a bit weird as well. Yeah. And it didn't go quite high enough, I don't think. But the adjustment mechanism was so bizarre as well. What really infuriated me was I was wet and cold and riding along going, I can't figure out how to make this work, which fair enough. I could park up and learn how to do it and then maybe try it while you're riding. But the other thing that really annoyed me was that I had to stand up on the bike, reach forward. I couldn't, it wasn't within a straight arm reach. Yep. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yep.
I mean, suspension, your semi-active, worked fine. It had beautiful roll holding. It was fab. Everything about the bike, the comfort, it was really, really good, because that was the same as the old one pretty much, apart from the semi-active, I guess. But yeah, just those things in particular. And yeah, the interface. I've had an Africa Twin for a year, then I had the NT 1100 for a year, and I sort of lived with the interface and it wasn't a problem. But I just sort of, by this time, I just lost patience with it.
Yeah, of course.
It was like, oh, come on, guys. So,
I'm trying to think of other parallel twin engines that might fit on your excitement chart.
Yeah, I didn't include 285-degree parallel twins. Depending whether you count it clockwise or anti-clockwise, which always confuses me. Yeah, they've got some vim to them, the old KTMs, no question. As long as they last long enough to actually get the vim out of them, of course. Hey! Sorry, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Sorry, before we get on to FEC.
Right.
I've also been riding a Hornet 1000 for Ride magazine.
Wow.
In fact, it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before. I did 500 miles in a day, which is why I'm coughing and so croaky now, because I was exercising neck muscles that I haven't exercised for a very long time. I can't remember the last time I rode a naked bike 500 miles.
No.
If ever. I think it was probably sometime in the 90s. So, yeah, took it up to the Pennines. Had a good schlep about for part of a much larger feature for the Hornet in ride, which is going to be worth reading because it's got lots of different elements. It was a long day. I spent about 14 hours in the saddle altogether. And I don't want to go into too much detail because the feature will reveal all about the bike. But there is a couple of things that I really, really want to say about it, which was because they're the really surprising things. It does the things that you'd expect it to do really well. It does them at a price we scarcely can believe, although some of the plastics are a bit thin. You can see where the money hasn't been spent. But the thing that is absolutely outstanding was its comfort. What a bizarre thing to say, 500 miles on a naked bike. And its tang range was really impressive.
Okay.
For what it is. You're sitting there kind of going... the riding position is it's almost classic Honda. It used to what we could be called classic Honda because it balances you into the wind blast perfectly. As long as you stay between 45, 40, up to about 70, up to about 80 if you want to do that, you balanced perfectly. There's almost no weight through the seat and you just float over it. It's a really flat, thin, hard seat. And you initially get on it going, whoa,
it's going to be a long day.
This is going to fucking hurt. And then 14 hours later, you get off it going, actually, that was pretty good.
Oh, wow.
I've ached a lot more in a lot shorter time on more, inverted commas, comfortable, air quotes, comfortable bikes. So, yeah, super, super impressed with it all round. There was, the interface was great.
Was it really?
Yeah, it works fine, really well. It was really intuitive. I could reset the trip in a split second just by going, that one there. And it's done, change rider modes. It's got a rain mode straight away, straight into it. It's easy. It's a button, and there it is. So, yeah, really, really, really impressed.
Is that the SP or the
it
base
wasn't.
model?
No.
So that's 8,999, is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was riding it around thinking, God, imagine if they put a half fairing on this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So we'd have like a kind of a modern CBF 1000.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
It's like a 150 horse engine.
Yeah, which is great. It's just the right amount. I mean, it is all up the top end, obviously.
Okay.
And it's got, you don't need it. I mean, it's happy at 6. Flicking it between sort of 5.5 and 6.5 that's its short shifting sweet spot. That's the bit where it kind of just goes whap, 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 and it goes real quick.
Okay.
It has got that kind of modern tune that some inline 4s from the past don't have. They're still kind of like
keep me going.
There you go. This is very much a rap,
Wow.
But what else was I going to say about it? There was something else. So anyway, yeah, deeply impressed.
Very good.
Deeply impressed. So read about it in Ride magazine. Where I know what it was. One final thing I just remembered. It's really, really good. But I was looking the other day. I've read a story that Honda announced the end of the CB1300.
Okay.
It's now Japanese only. I think we've mentioned it like a year ago because I was flicking through a Honda Japan website and saw that they were still selling it in Japan and went, oh my God, look at that. It looks beautiful.
The CB1300. Yep.
So this started off in 92 with the big one, the CB1000, with a big, massive alloy swing arm and a big CB1000R engine. And it's evolved over the years. It's had a half fairing at times and it's still for sale in Japan. Can't buy it anywhere else in the world, but it is going to end. It's called the final edition or something like that. Or the final solution, I don't know. And so I was looking at, and I just wanted one so badly because they look like, what you haven't,
what you can't get anymore. Yeah.
A classic 1990s, beautifully built, fabulously, painstakingly assembled Honda. And I was just thinking about the Hornet, and I was thinking, mate, in every single dynamic, that bike is probably superior to the CB1300, apart from one thing. And that is that aura of special. The
look, the image, the feel,
Yeah, it's just that thing. So it's like a bike that is, in every measurable way, is superior in its technology, in its handling, its performance, its fuel economy, comfort, almost anything. But it's not as special as some old archaic piece of thing that they're just about to stop making. How weird is that? What does that mean? Is that us? Is that me? Is that motorcycling? Is that 2025?
I always try and do a quick reality check with those things. So if Honda had that CB1300 for sale in Europe, would it sell? 'Cause I sort of feel it probably would. It sort of feels like it would have enough popularity for enough people that it would.
I think it may well do. I don't know what it would cost.
Yeah, there is that.
I understand the website. I think I was doom scrolling it last night about 2 a.m. So I think they said something about $14,500 was the equivalent. That'll be American dollars, is the price they're asking in Japan. So that would normally puts it around about 14, 15 grand in our money, probably, if it was to come over here. Not that it will, but it's probably not even Euro 4. Who knows? But yeah, what a thing, And so yeah, it is that sort of distance, that gap between what is.
It's so funny, isn't it? We had them for many, many years.
Yeah.
You know, I remember Bike had one on a long-term test in 2005, I think. Mm-hmm. Maybe when the CB13S was either introduced or reintroduced. Mm-hmm. And I remember riding one in 08 or 09. Took one to Cadwell, modified it, turned it into a kind of a wannabe race bike thing.
Yeah.
With belly pan and sticky tyres, and that was good fun. And I'm pretty sure it lasted a couple more years than that. So it had a good 5 to 10 year run. And I'm sure at no point would it have been like Honda's biggest selling bike in Britain. So it's that disconnect between it sort of looking really appealing and attractive and feeling like it would make a lot of sense and be quite accessible and surely couldn't be that expensive. And yet we didn't buy them when we had them.
Well, maybe it's because time is a flat disc. I don't know. Maybe things, what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
And it's like, if they kept building it, it would have come back into fashion. Because our tastes have changed.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like if Honda made the Dominator now. What a fucking weapon that would be. It would all be out buying. It would be in our droves.
Yeah, probably. This is basically Suzuki's model development strategy, isn't it?
It is.
Introduce a bike, wait for it to go out of fashion, wait a bit more. Wait a bit more.
You know what it
then
was?
Reintroduce it.
Do you know what it was? It's their classic parts program was such a success. Somebody just went, why don't we just bolt them together?
Can we just have all of the classic parts?
Just make the bike,
Yes.
Watch out for the TL1000S. It's coming back, fellas.
A lovely 90-degree V-twin.
Anyway, right.
Now,
we've whittled.
Where are we? Have we got time for a few, FECs?
Yes, we have got time for a few. Yes, we've got...
So these are all the thoughts, ponderings, wonderings, poems, haikus, invoices, and anything else emailed to us at anything@frontendchatter.com. Stuart White?
Go for it.
Stuart says... I bought an SVE 650. That's all we need. Thank you very much, Stuart. Sorry. To do a tour of Wales a couple of years back. I loved it, but I never rode it after. Lack of time, lack of friends, lack of weather. A few months ago, I had yet another crisis that I wanted a 1000cc sports bike. Wanted to ride to Spain and also ride the Nürburgring. Oh, timely. I found a nice 2012 Fireblade, all in black. I got excited and I bought a quick shifter and all the usual accessories. And this is where the problems start. My first proper ride out, just cruising up the motorway at 105 miles an hour. I genuinely thought I was doing about 70 odd. No, well, honestly, I didn't think I was doing more than 80. Then on the way back, a quick blip sees me doing double the speed limit on the slip road. Calm down, son. This is why you do track days. Well, it's not, because I haven't been able to justify spending the money for a track day this year. So why have you bought a new bike, I hear you ask? Surely that would pay for several track days. Well, says Stuart, the idea was to have a bike to do both. Track days, Nürburgring, Sunday mornings, and a trip to the Picos. Now, I like fast, says Stuart, as if it needs to be said. I like dragging my knee like I'm 16 again, but can I trust myself? No. I like wheelies too, which is why I bought a Honda Grom. Crisis number 7,826, riding a Grom to Land's End in a banana suit. I think we've had that picture, haven't we?
Yeah,
but I like my license. Now, a deciding factor was when under braking, a judder appeared, Surely this isn't enough for ABS. I thought I've never ridden a bike with ABS. Well, bike goes back to the garage, choice of repair or refund. You know what? I've fallen out of love with the Fireblade after just 85 miles, but yes. That voice saying, are you going to calm down or will this end badly? Can you trust yourself? So, fast forward a few months. Now, I want a Yamaha MT-07. Always like them. They don't go too fast to get into trouble. They look great. They sound great. They have similar power to the SV. So I should be able to do all of the above stuff. Or do I want a Kawasaki ZX6R? I bought, may refer to a different crisis when I bought a street triple coming from an R6. Surely the wind in your face will slow you down and you don't really need to redline it. I sold that when I only did 39 miles between MOTs. Goodness.
Good grief.
2025, says Stuart, will be a tough year. There are a few things changing in my life and tough decisions to be made. Likelihood of having money for track days and bikes will go. I'm not really sure if there's a question, actually, or if this is just some sort of therapy for myself. Anyway, thank you for FEC. I found myself going for unnecessary drives to listen to you in the car. It would be nice if you could upload to YouTube, as it's easier to listen to at work.
Oh, your wish, Stuart, is our command. Because I think we are on YouTube now, aren't we? I uploaded the last episode.
We have one.
I've not seen, or if anybody's actually looked at it. But anyway,
Probably not.
Mate, Stuart. If 2025 is going to be a tough year, a few things changing in my life, tough decisions to be made, I would say, going on your previous record, don't get hung up on making tough decisions because you're not going to be able to make them. I mean, just give it up and go with it, I think. I think you're overthinking a bit. I think crisis number
and that's
9...
coming from you.
Yeah, 9,567 crisis will see you coming back to bikes, whatever it takes. So just forego the bit in the middle that sees you selling them off. There's always a cheaper one.
Get a nice CB1000.
Yeah.
It's got all of the above. It's got a Fireblade. It's got a nice bit of power. It's affordable. It's comfortable. There you are. Problem solved. You're welcome.
Yeah, but then there you go. Done. Excellent. Thank you, Stuart. Yes, you have got some deciding to do, I think. Phil Hyam says, hi guys, much thanks and appreciation for keeping the informative and entertaining pod so fresh after all these over 200 times. FEC is the top of my list of listens and has been there for a long time. Good, thank you, Phil. Right, he goes on to say, this might be, which probably means it is going to be, an eclectic and disjointed email, but I've been lazy and saving up the various points for a long while. Okay, let's get off onto number one. Phil says, firstly, on the previously discussed subject of ascending the motorcycle ladder, I reached what many of my mates told me was the top of the ladder 4 years ago with a 2011 Multistrada Pikes Peak. Yeah, that's at the peak of the Pike. Best and worst bike ever. Right, okay, go for it, Phil. He says it gave me the most thrills in 40 years of riding, most of the last 15 years with the bike being my only form of transport. Performance, yes. Comfort, eye candy, what a machine. But reliability and parts availability and service costs ruined our relationship. Phil says he decided to drop down a rung or two to a 2015 to a Tiger 1050 Sport. Apart from the very occasional hot start issue and a dodgy fuel gauge, it proved much more practical, and I had 2 and a bit years of fun and impressive service from it. If I had my time again, says Phil, I'd choose the generally reliable Triumph over the highly strung Multi any day. Ooh, there we go. Anyway, Phil goes on. 3 winters of year-round riding on the Triumph took its toll, and the final straw being fork and brakes needing a big overhaul. As my commute became less motorway, more urban and back roads, I began to wonder what a middleweight option might look like. After some fab and free, hey, no worries, advice from Mr. Simon Hargreaves, thanks again, Si. Did I? For the last 18 months, I've had a 2014 CBR 650F in my garage. Oh. That's different. Purchased for $4,000, 10,000 miles, full service history and mint. Okay, it's pretty useless 2-up, says Phil. If I want to do another overseas tour with my daughter on the back, I'm going to have to hire a bike. But honestly, it does everything I want on a day-to-day basis. He then goes on to describe what it's like about it being sluggish below 5,000 revs, but he loves it. The point, he says, I'm getting to it, of this first point is... on the Multi, I reckon I rarely, if ever, open the throttle to the stops. Now, with a Honda, even on a proper riding day, I'm only using full beans less than 25% of the time. It's more than equal to my intermediate level of scraperage. I could buy 6 or 7 of my current bikes for the price of a new Multistrada or a GSA. So my question, pillion use aside, is are we motorcyclists spending our hard-earned cash wisely? Having heard Martin's recent reviews on the Triumph Speed 400, for example, I'm already tempted to try the next rung down. I see, Phil. So you're talking about
spending our money wisely.
And maybe he's treading down, coming down the motorcycling ladder. Actually, what we should be doing.
Certainly seems a popular thing, doesn't it? I mean, the big bikes continue to get bigger and the 1200s become 1300s, become 1400s. But there's definitely more interest from manufacturers in building kind of 400, 500, 600cc bikes.
Definitely. I mean, to me, reading through your email, Phil, it strikes me that you're changing as much as your bikes. And so you're really buying different bikes to reflect your updated...
You're evolving,
riding reality. Yeah. You know, you were saying as your riding became more urban, you obviously chucked in the Triumph. And also, you know, the whole thing is that buying the wrong bike or buying a bike that turns out to be wrong for you eventually at a certain point is why we keep having to buy new ones.
Which is brilliant.
Which is kind of the plan. It's sort of what it's about. So, yes. What's Phil's second point? Is it good enough to read out? Let's have a look. Second point is more of a reflection. When I had the Triumph, I was unfortunate enough to break down twice in a couple of months. First time on a roundabout in the middle of an industrial estate. Out of nowhere came a bloke who'd spotted me through his office window, offering me tools, fuel, a lift, a bump start. Anything else? Ended up giving me half a gallon of fuel from a jerry can. The second time, an Eddie Stobart HGV pulled into my lay-by and took me to a petrol station to buy fuel and then took me back to my bike. A 45-minute deviation from his journey on the East Coast. So my reflection is this, says Phil. Where else on earth today does anyone find this kind of kindness and solidarity? Well, actually, there's probably a few places, to be fair. But he says, I'm sure a lot of FECers will have similar stories to tell. Could this be a feature for future pods? The Good Samaritans at frontendchatter.com. It would be cool to hear anybody's stories out there of either being a good Samaritan to somebody else or having good Samaritanism done to you.
Yeah, I think having it done to you is a lovely thing, isn't it? Because it kind of reminds you that the world in which you live is not quite as horrible and evil and shite and nasty as it might be tempting to think of it as.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know...
Fundamentally, people are decent.
Yeah, it's sort of... And especially, in particular, there is a sort of a... Not to be gender specific, a bikerhood.
Oh, okay.
A brotherhood, I was going to say.
Yeah, okay. Very good.
Don't worry, I wasn't going to... Yeah, female bikers never stop for anyone. No, I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah, let's definitely start that one.
No, it's a real kind of brotherhood thing. So there is a, you know, I mean, I've rescued people twice. I think I talked about this on FEC once. I was driving in a van coming up the Crowland bypass and noticed the bike in front of me, which two up, had a flat rear tyre. So I was flashing him and pull over, mate, pull over. And he turned out he coming back from, I think it might have been the MCM bike show or something. So it wasn't, you know, it was pretty shit weather and everything. And I had an empty van. And he looked really suspicious. I was going, mate, throw it.
Yeah, I would be suspicious.
I was going, mate, throw it in the van. We'll take you home because he only lived up the road.
Yeah, I've got a bed in the back. Sorry, I mean, I've got...
Yeah, he was...
Does this rag smell a rip? No.
Very, very cautious. But once we got going, he was fine, you know, and I dropped you off at his house. And because it wasn't out of my way particularly. So it's like, why wouldn't you do that if you saw that? Especially someone who's got a problem right in front of you. Sure. It sort of makes sense. Another time, I remember years and years ago, we used to, on PB, drive around in Rupert's company car, the editor's company car, with a massive trailer on the back where you could get 3 bikes on. And I was coming back down a road somewhere out in Northamptonshire. I remember the trailer used to wave like a bastard if you didn't put a bike on the right place. If you put a bike right over the axle, just one bike, the thing would be like, way. Anyway, and there was a GPZ 900R broken down. And there was a guy at the side of the road. And I just, where are you going? I can't fix it because I haven't got a clue. I'm thick, but I can take you somewhere. And so I took him somewhere. So, yeah, I've done it twice. I don't think I've ever been... No, I ran out of fuel once coming back on my Triumph, coming back from Bike Magazine. It was the one where... It was my bike. It was a Triumph Sprint. And it was the one...
I remember the one,
It was the one where it ran out of fuel and then the fuel light began to glow just as it splattered to a hole. You're like, thanks. And
the sarcastic fuel line.
Yeah, I wasn't miles from home, but it was dark. There was no room at the side of the road, and the phone signal it was where there's a dead spot. And a guy came past in a landscaping van and stopped. Oh, I'll put you in, mate. I'll take you to the petrol station, which was literally about 3 miles up the road, but pushing one of those fuckers, no chance. And so he put it in the van, and he was an utter psycho. Yeah, it was proper like. Okay, drop me off here. That's great. Thanks. Great.
We're good.
See
Thank
later.
you.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, off you go. You know, it was a proper head case, but, you know, help me.
Yeah,
Did
good
the
Samaritans can be head cases.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I want to hear more stories like that because it is feel-good stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you have it done to you, it makes you feel good. And if you do it to someone else, it also makes you feel good.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Right. One condition though, nobody email goodsamaritan@frontendchatter.com. That won't work.
Oh, yeah.
Email anything at frontendchatter.com with the subject line Good Samaritan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Who you do next?
We're going to do the last question.
Yeah.
The last, Phil's last question.
Oh, sorry.
Final point in his
course.
ramble.
Yes. Final point in this ramble is more of a question. Good, finally. Can anyone explain why a standard road bike gearbox has a neutral between first and second? Presumably you mean why it hasn't got neutral at the bottom and then first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And also, why is a race box the reverse of a road box? Phil. Right, shall I do the reverse thing? I can do either.
Whichever you like.
Reverse pattern, as far as I know, is to keep your feet out of the way on a race bike. Keep your way out of the tarmac when changing up mid-corner because it's rare to change down mid-corner. So it just keeps your feet a little bit higher on the foot peg, gives you more ground clearance. That's the traditional reasoning for it.
Which then begs the question, well, why is a road bike's gearbox that way round?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I'm not sure of that. I've never really thought about that one. Why is it that way around?
Because they're not always, are they? Because on Moto Morini 350 thing that I rode, the gearbox was not only on the right, it was also upside down.
Yeah.
So I think that proves that there isn't a technical reason. It's conventional, right? So you can have a gearbox. You can put your gear pedal on the left side or the right side. You can run it up to down or down to up.
Whichever way
however
you
you like. So there is no technical reason for doing any of it. No. It is just convention. And I think, was there maybe I'm totally making this up.
Go on.
I think there might have been some regulation in the States in the 60s or 70s, something around that time, that kind of said, if you want to sell your bike into our market, it needs to, for kind of commonality's sake, it needs to be on this side and work this way around. I have no proof of that and no fact of that. But.
No, I think I've read something similar, and it's kind of like an anecdotal thing. I'm not sure if those regulations still exist.
Probably
but
not.
I have heard that as well. Yeah, that it kind of like forced manufacturers to choose a side.
If you want to sell into our market, this is what you've got to do. But that doesn't explain why neutral is between first and second. It certainly isn't always. I remember riding some little Suzuki 125 years and years and years and years ago that had neutral either all the way at the bottom or all the way at the top, whichever it would have been. And obviously MotoGP bikes now have their neutrals in different positions. Again, I haven't found any paperwork or definitive fact on this, but my assumption is that it's to stop you kind of going down through the box as you're maybe in a town or coming up to a set of traffic lights and you go third, second, first, neutral, and you got nothing. Yeah. That's my kind of presumption.
Yeah, I kind of thought about it quite a lot. And I was kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm sure I've heard the answer for this before. And I can't work out, just by riding a bike in my head, what the disadvantage would be, apart from you can't select neutral easily while you're moving. Yeah, you have to make it. It's an intentional selection. I mean, obviously bikes will pop into a false neutral and all that kind of stuff. But to so if we're coming down through the gearbox and you're not keeping count, because this was presumably developed before we had gear position indicators, you're not keeping count, you could think you're going from second to first and find that you're actually going from first to neutral, in which case you're in a situation where you've got no engine drive, and that will affect the bike's direction, handling,
safety.
Safety. So that kind of makes sense. I mean, I think motorcycling, the techniques and the technology and the environments that we ride in have changed so that isn't quite as important maybe as it used to be. Like I say, you've got digital gear indicators now, that kind of thing.
And DCT and semi-auto transmissions.
Yeah, and also, it does speak very much to that old code of riding where it was like you change down one gear at a time, disengaging the clutch each time, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And we just don't ride like that anymore. But that's pretty much why it is. There you go. Excellent. Thank you very much. Was that Phil? Yeah, thank you, Phil. Right, we've still got loads of time, Phil.
Good.
If you can.
Should we just carry on through then?
We just keep going. Okay.
Mike Rothwell.
Okay.
Mike says, hello both. You may remember me emailing in early September about trading in my trusty Yamaha XV950 and getting a lovely Kawasaki Z1000 SX.
I do. Thank you, Mike. Carry on.
Okay. Wasn't Mike a guest?
He was
a participant.
He was a willing victim of the road test experience.
That's right.
You
said he was chomping along.
He was chomping along on his XV950. He was thoroughly in love with it and didn't see a need to upgrade, I don't think, at the time. So it was interesting to hear that you had, Mike.
Okay. Mike says, I had such high hopes for this bike. Never a good start to a sentence. The bar height seemed just right. The riding position was comfortable yet sporty, and there was plenty of usable power to make me laugh. I really wanted it to be a great bike. This was not simply a mode of transport, as I don't commute. So for me, it was purely a toy, a means to enjoy the many fun twisties near my home, to get out for an hour or so after work, or for a few hours over the weekend and recharge my social batteries and get the much needed alone time and headspace. I had such high hopes. Unfortunately, it was not to be. But not because of the bike, it was genuinely all of those things. From my initial experience, it was perfect for me. I loved it. Notice the past tense there. I loved it for 6 weeks. Then at the beginning of October, on just my 5th time out on it, a driver decided I shouldn't have that bike anymore and crashed their car into me, knocking me off.
Mike.
It wasn't a case of sorry I didn't see you, just sorry I didn't look. I won't go into any more details as I have a claim going through, but it was not my fault, nothing I could have done to avoid it other than stay home that day. You can be the best rider in the world, but you can't control other people. So it's not been a great few weeks. I have a couple of broken bones and various injuries. I'm very aware it could have been so much worse. They've written my bike off and made me a very reasonable payment, and it was completely the car driver's fault. I haven't had to pay any excess. It hasn't affected my no claims. A sad and sudden end to a very short but flirtatious relationship. But I'm pleased to report, says Mike, despite currently not being able to ride, my new bike is being delivered tomorrow. A 2017 Kawasaki Z1000 SX.
Back on the horse.
It'll be great to have it in the garage, ready for when I can ride again, and hopefully I'll get to keep this one a bit longer. Keep up the great work. Oh, well done, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, I see what you did there. You made a fundamental mistake. You went on the road test experience, not the road traffic accident experience. That's the problem.
Is that this season's offering?
Yes, yeah, that's what we're doing this time. Well, Mike, you know what I'd say? If you're on the road test experience, I'd say it's always your fault. You know. There's no fucking sympathy from me, mate.
Wow.
You get broken bones.
Hardcore victim blaming.
You got to look inside yourself and figure that out, because you don't want that to happen again. But I'm sure you're going to do that process. No, it's good to hear you getting back on the horse. Then nice
good
one.
Stuff.
Good stuff, Mike. Cheers. And you're right. You know, in terms of your riding, yeah, you're a very, very competent, safe rider. So if you say that it was beyond your control, then there are, as we've discussed before, some circumstances that are totally beyond your control. We do a couple more. I'm just scrolling backwards. Here we go. Stephen Waters says, Tigers or V2S? Ooh, he's been talking about V2Ss.
Okay.
Stephen says, hi, gents. I can't make a decision. I have 12K to spend on something adventure stroke tour like, and I'm torn between a 2024 plate Tiger 900 GT Pro, the new Tiger 800 Sport, and a 2022 Multistrada V2S. Okay. My mind changes from one day to the next. I've demoed the Tiger 900 and liked it muchly, although it didn't set the heather on fire for me, which is a lovely turn of phrase. The Multi I haven't been able to demo, not easy to do on a used bike these days. And of course the 800 Sport is only available so far to gentlemen such as yourselves. If you were in my position, which would you opt for? Says Stevie.
Oh, ooh, Stephen, that for me is an impossible decision, because I think I've only ridden one of those 3 bikes.
Oh, okay.
I have ridden the 24 Tiger 900 GT Pro, and I thought it was very, very good, very, very accomplished. No major complaints here.
Yeah.
But the Tiger 800, the new one, I certainly haven't ridden. And the Multi V2, I'm not sure I even did. I'm sure it might have passed me by. I was probably at a proper job at that point.
You probably did. It wasn't around for long. So the V2S was the evolution of the 950S, which was the same bike but with the lower seat height, so much adapted ergonomics, which I didn't think were quite as good. I thought it was actually for a normal sized rider. I wouldn't say, oh God, I'm being heightist again. I'm really really sorry. I didn't mean that. I'll take that back. For lanky gits, it was a little bit too low, I think. So anyway, 900 Tiger GT Pro. Just been riding one for Ride Magazine. Had a little long termer. And my God, the spec on it, the capability of it, the performance is great. It's got heated seats and heated grips, and it comes in big boxes, and it's just so practical. However, Ducati is probably funner and probably more up for it and kind of a bit more yeehaw. So it's kind of about, here we go again, it's the engine vibe that you prefer, the bike vibe that you prefer. Once you've ticked off all your other sort of must-haves, if you must have heated grips, I'm not sure if the V2S comes with them as standard. I think it does. If it doesn't, I'm sure there is an easy optional extra. I'm sure most people that bought V2S probably did spec them. But as for the 800, I suspect, I haven't ridden one, hopefully going to ride one reasonably soon. I think it'll probably be revier than the other two.
Okay.
I would imagine. I think it's probably a bit less of the adventure style thing, but the most significant dynamic difference is it's a 17-inch front on that, I believe. So that will have a kind of a more traditional road handling bias in the way it steers and the front end feel of the bike. Won't quite have so much of that kind of big, tall, domineering thing going on. I mean, it's only an inch, but hey, apparently it matters. Not a huge amount of help there, Stevie. I mean, it kind of is up to you. Personally, I'd probably take the Tiger 900 because I think it offers me personally the best compromise of performance and practicality. And I think and I mean practicality in terms of also service costs.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into reliability because it's either or, but there's a little bit of me just thinks the Tiger might last a bit longer in terms of, I hear is the Tiger will be easier for a klutz like me to look after. So if I completely ignore it and let it rot after a couple of rides in winter, it will probably do less harm to it than if it was a Ducati. I think they're need a little bit more of your attention paying to them. But that's kind of just my prejudice a little bit.
There we go.
So there's that one. Nice one, Stevie. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Stephen. Can I go to...
You may. I can scroll. I have that ability.
Where shall we go?
How about Peter Lobb says,
Sure.
Eurosport price hikes.
Oh,
Yikes.
yes, this is timely, isn't it?
Yeah.
Peter Lobb says, any thoughts on the recent price increase to watch British superbikes and world superbikes? Mine would have leapt from $6.99 a month to $39 a month.
What?
$30.99 a month.
What?
Is that really a 343% price rise? Pete says, I've gone for the Dorna World Superbike Video Pass at £60 a year instead and will have to rely on ITV4 or Quest TV for British Superbike highlights. Sigh, I know that FEC and racing has had an uncomfortable relationship in recent years, but have you been personally or professionally affected by what actually has happened? Let's be clear, it's not necessarily a price hike. It's that Eurosport has been rolled into its sugar daddies, its parent company, TNT. Mm-hmm. And so many sports, including World Superbikes and British Superbikes, which were previously aired on Eurosport, are now being snuggled behind the TNT Sports paywall. So where you could have got away with paying a small amount per month for Eurosport Player, such luxuries do not now buy you BSB or WSB.
No, I did have a Eurosport app and I used to watch it back in the day. Can I make a confession? I'm not sure if I can actually do this.
Please, confess away. You're in.
I don't know. I'm not sure. This is heresy.
Okay.
I would think about getting a TNT subscription because I really love the Prem. I watch the football all the time. I'm really into the football.
Okay.
So they show quite a lot of matches. So if I would subscribe for £30 a month, I get motorbikes on there as well.
Sure.
I get MotoGP.
Sure.
Because that used to be BT Sport. And now I'll get BSB and World Superbike.
I believe so.
Wow. And football.
Sure. Let's say you do.
Bit of boxing as well.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I might actually do that.
You're actually talking yourself into a sale rather than channeling the outrage.
Yeah. Sorry, Peter. You've alerted me to the fact that actually I might want to do that.
Sounds all right to you, doesn't it?
What can I do in my life to save £30 a month to pay for it?
OnlyFans?
Yeah.
Pictures of your feet? Pete, I have no real thoughts. I am ambivalent at best. This just feels like kind of rampant capitalism, no? Supply and demand in action. There are three ways, I guess, you can make money by showing sports on telly. You can either charge the viewers directly and put it behind a paywall. You can sell advertising. Or you can, I don't know, charge the sports series themselves for the privilege of putting their show on your programming. It kind of seems like historically, and it's not just motorcycle racing, it's kind of, I would say, broadly all sports, as advertising rates have declined and as other screens fight for our attention, that the business model of trying to make a small amount of money off of a large number of viewers is kind of eroding away. And then the next logical step is to try and make a large amount of money out of a small number of viewers. And so it's kind of cutting off the casual viewers and really... hesitant to say fleece, but it really encourages hardcore fans to invest in the sport they love.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're someone like TNT or BT Sports or whatever, what you need to do is to package together enough sports for that monthly fee so that you're not just trying to pay 30 quid for one sport.
Yeah.
As you say. But unfortunately for me, as someone who's kind of quite sports phobic, I couldn't care less whether there's rugby or football or international tiddlywinks. Kind of none of it matters. And so my solution this year is just going to be to not watch any of it, I think. The bit I'm kind of gutted by is that I did quite enjoy watching a bit of World Superbikes last year when it was on and when I could commit the time to it. And so I'm just going to settle for ITV4 highlights, I think, which is a bit of a shame.
That is a shame.
I think for us as punters, it's one thing, but I'm kind of more intrigued, a bit more like godlike, like big eye, kind of eagle eye view of everything, bird's eye view of everything.
Yeah.
How does this affect sponsors? If you're a sponsor of a team and your assumption is that I'm going to put Mufka Skip Hire all over that Ducati World Superbike team because I know it's going to get loads of viewers, and then all of a sudden those viewers aren't accessible anymore because that sport's been put behind a paywall. Suddenly, a very small number of people are now going to learn about Mufka Skip Hire.
Yeah.
And so my investment has a worse return on it.
Yeah, exactly. The argument for, that the team is going to make for to retain your sponsorship is weakened considerably.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that has a huge effect on the way teams are run and the money in that particular corner of the sport. It may be mitigated by some other deal somehow through the organisers. Money may filter down from other parts of the business. Who knows? No idea. But you would think that would have a pretty big knock-on effect, wouldn't you? If your audience has suddenly been diminished. Yeah. But I've always had a suspicion. I'm not sure how many of the how many sponsorship deals for things like bike racing are not driven less by a corporate desire for some sort of brand recognition, and it's a more personal thing. It's about blokes who are CEOs who like bike racing and want to go and sit in a box somewhere and be part of it.
Or to money launder behind the empty shell of a non-existent energy drinks company.
Well, there is that. Or sports wash on behalf of a repressive regime.
There's that. And how are they supposed to do that when there's only a small number of people watching?
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good way of cleaning up your the political and the economic disparity in your sport is to put it behind a paywall so no fucker can see it.
Yeah, because of course none of those sports that are behind paywalls are now based in repressive regimes or use controversial sponsors.
Not at all, no. Right,
anyway,
we'll finish off then.
Off track.
Yeah, we are. Finish off on the FEC Sack then. We've got one more. Dave Sheeran, I can do this one real quick. Motorcycling time capsules we were talking about the other day. What would you put in your motorcycling time capsule? And Dave says, the one thing I would put in my motorcycling time capsule is my email to Front End Chatter, because it would most likely be dug up way before it was retrieved from the FEC Sack.
Well, there you go, David.
You go, Dave. There's proof that into the time capsule is going your email.
The weird thing is that David actually sent that email in 2015 because he knew that we'd be talking about it 10 years in the future.
2015 BC. Yeah, it's been mummified.
Him and old Sextus, whatever his name was.
Thank you, Dave.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone who's emailed us. We have a few more missives left in the FEC Sack, but please feel free to contribute your own. Any thoughts about motorcycling in its current state? Any questions, any wonderings, any rebuttals to any nonsense that we've spake?
We've had a lot of subjects, haven't we, really? We've gone through quite a few kind of things here. We've been talking about semi-active suspension being a prophylactic. What else have we talked about?
That was it, pretty much.
That was pretty much it, yeah. But there's a few other topics. I'll tell you what I'm interested in as well, by the way, as we finish off. Oh, I better press a button here, haven't I?
Go on.
Oh, there it is. There's the music. Smooth. I'm interested. Tell me just one tiny thing more about your feature that you wrote for Ride Magazine about the benefits, the psychological and the physiological benefits of riding a bike. When is that out? Has that been printed yet?
No, it hasn't been printed. It will be in a future issue of Ride. The editor asked me to find out whether riding a bike can be good for your body and good for your mind. And I guess there's two ways you can do that feature. Number one, you can decide the answer before you write it and then find the evidence that suits your hypothesis and write it. Or the other one is to actually ask some experts and listen to what they have to say. And I unfortunately chose to do the second version. So it might not be quite as happy clappy as you might hope for, but it is true. It is based on scientific evidence, and there is genuine benefits to riding a bike.
Brilliant. I look forward to reading that. I really want to read that.
Please do.
That's good. We can talk about the next time, perhaps.
Yes, him, Simon Hargreaves, is available on the social medias at Simon H Bikes, I think, although it might be different on his Instagram from his Blue Sky.
Who knows? Who cares? And at Mufka is at Mufka everywhere.
And go and get your insurance from Bennett's. Thank you very much, Bennett's Bike Social. What should I do? Bit more next time or a bit less?
No, that's kind of about right, I think.
Oh, was it?
It's pretty good. Yeah. I forgot to do a timer thing, so you
Never
couldn't,
mind.
you just
209 episodes. It's all right.
pissing in the wind, really. Kind of that's FEC, isn't it? It's pissing in the wind.
Auditory equivalent of pissing in the wind.
Yeah, it's pissing in your ears.
Does that actually make a sound?
Literally.
I mean, you'd have to have quite a hard stream to actually hear the sound of pissing in the wind, wouldn't you?
I'm sure I've heard a horse pissing in the wind before.
Was that the sound of the piss hitting the ground or the sound of the piss fighting against the wind?
Yeah, it's the aerodynamic qualities of a stream of piss.
It'd have to be quite strong pressure. You'd need a young person.
Have you seen a horse's bladder?
Not recently.
It's siphoning out of some big, it's hose piping it into the ground. It was like, wow. Yeah. I was on a bike with earplugs in and I could hear it.
Wow.
Oh dear.